I recently reacted to the Freewheelin Bob Dylan, and I have listened to that album, at least in part, every single day since I heard that album, which says a lot about an artist to be able to write timeless music. And I had a lot of people asking me, how the heck have I never heard of Bob Dylan? And I would simply say, I didn't have people in my life that suggested I listen to Bob Dylan, so I never went out of my way to listen. I heard of the artist. It's impossible to grow up without hearing about him, but that's about as much as I got. And I'm excited because I'm taking another step in his chronology and hopping into the times they are a-changin', which in reality is actually what my real introduction to Bob Dylan was. In 2009, this movie came out called The Watchmen, which is a movie based on my favorite comic series. It's a short run, but it's a movie based on that. And the intro sequence to that movie is this song, as you see crazy things in the world happen. And I was like, that is a cool song, but I never thought about it for more than the movie. So this is something I'm pretty excited to hop into, especially after hearing how timeless Dylan's music was and feeling like even now, like 60 years later, this album came out 60 years ago, 61 years ago in a couple of days. So the fact that music that is 60 years old could be considered still relevant today is huge. I'm very excited to hop back in. And I've even been practicing my harmonica so that I could try to cover Dylan's songs just in my own time, not for YouTube or anything, just to be able to say, like, I did it, add it to my repertoire. And guys, I'm going to hit the play button on this thing. I decided not to do this one live because I really want to digest the lyrics. And if there's context I'm missing as I go throughout this, because again, I'm 33. I don't have the benefit of life experience to give me some of this historical context, and no amount of things I learned in school is, going to prepare me to understand contextual information from a time I did not exist. So if you happen to notice I missed some context, I would love it if you would, provide me some. Because it's unreasonable to know every piece of historical context before you jump into an album. It's just not possible. That said, I very much feel like Bob Dylan's music needs to be shared with the world. I think we live in a time that needs to hear words like his. And I feel like we really stymie that from happening when we look at it from a hierarchical, like, how do you not know this kind of perspective. Don't gatekeep the music. The world needs it. So share it with people. And if they don't understand it, share the context. My challenge to you. Guys, I'm going to hit the play button on this thing. Before I do, it's very important to me that you know that you are awesome, that you are valuable, that you are important, that you matter, that you are deserving of love, and that I am abundantly grateful for even a moment of your time. If you like what you see, feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button because it does go a long way to help me out. And if you really like what you see, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Or join me on Twitch. I stream every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Arizona time. I've got a great community of people to listen to music with and discover music with. We would just love to have you by, let you know you belong. Guys, without further ado, a song I've heard many times on an album I've heard none. The Times They Are A-Changin', the album and the song by Bob Dylan. Here we go.
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, or the times they are a-changin'.
Not a joke. After hearing this album, or Freewheelin', I asked for a harmonica in G for Christmas, and I got one just because, again, I wanted to be able to play Bob Dylan. So I love his harmonica work, but again, just this concept is. I feel like the times they are still a-changin', and yeah, as I read through this, I don't know.
Some writers and critics who prophesize with your pen And keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that it's naming. Was the loser now will be later to win, for the times they are a-changin'.
I feel like there's a call to action within this, but I don't know if the call to action is the action of doing something about it, or if it's the action of calling people to the attention of what's happening around them.
Senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. The battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changin'.
Especially now, this whole part is especially relevant. You know, senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Like, don't stand in the doorway. Don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled, because the battle outside is raging. Well, because the battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changin'. I feel like he's both, in his own way, kind of prophesying the times ahead, which, as we all know, because we've seen what's happened since then, kind of happened. There was a very, 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 and still is a very, very, very ugly attitude in the world around us. And a lot of it's just and a lot of it's unjust. And I think deciphering those things, when you feel like senators and congressmen are heeding the call to the unjust, that is tough. And I like that. I feel like he's calling attention to, you know, everybody to consider what is happening in the world around them, and the fact, furthermore, that they are a-changin'.
Mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you can't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changin'.
I know I keep pausing it, but I'm pausing it on this one to address any of the people that are watching this video that are saying you're ruining Bob Dylan's music for what you're doing. I would turn around and say nobody is going to find Bob Dylan's music if it is not shared, and algorithms do not like sharing Bob Dylan's music with people who are listening to music from the world today. And that is kind of why I feel like a lot of people are, you know, they grew up listening to his music and believing in it, but then once they got old enough to be able to look at the generations behind them, they nosed up to them and didn't actually, you know, didn't make themselves aware of the fact. So they're criticizing, you know, things that they don't understand. And it's further than just music and the way it's shared. I mean, it's everything. Like, as times have evolved, there was an element where I think people that grew up listening to this were in the midst of the changes, but then they wanted things to stay the same. And, you know, for better or worse, they don't kind of roll with things. I would 100% say we live in a world where everybody criticizes things that they don't understand. And I would argue that maybe that's really stupid. And maybe you should get off of your preconceived notions of what should be and consider the world around you. And you could say that from the left or the right side. I'm not coming from a political stance here. I'm very much apolitical. I think people need to fix the world. I think we need to be a part of doing that by you know, turning our other cheeks, by doing the right thing for the sake of it being the right thing. And I like that. I feel, as I listen to his music, Bob Dylan really seems to embody those things. And, you know, I don't necessarily know what his life might have become other than he would continue on to world fame and, you know, being the voice of a generation. But I definitely 100% think that there's always an old road rapidly aging. And if you're not willing to lend your hand or your services or your kindness or your talents to that, get out of the way. Times are changing.
The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be
I love that line, man.
The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changin'.
I love this song. Again, timeless, actually timeless. By the way, if you're wondering why I pause it a lot, I'm going to say this now. If you're wondering why I pause it a lot, for me to be able to upload full-length album reactions, I have to make it to where it's not a suitable replacement in and of itself for listening to the original content. So, as I listen through this, I have to interject with commentary. It's not that I like hearing myself talk. I'm sure that there's some element of that that's true for any of yous that would like to just, lean into me. But I have to give commentary to be able to upload the video. Otherwise, I'm just stealing Bob Dylan's content. Guys, this one is called Ballad of Hollis Brown. I like this.
Hollis Brown, he lived on the outside of town.
I like the swampy sound.
Hollis Brown, he lived on the outside of town.
Playing really down by the bridge to get
With
that.
his wife and 5 children and his cabin broken down. He looked for work and money, and you walked a ragged mile. You looked for work and money, and you walked a ragged mile. Your children are so hungry that they don't know how to smile.
Oh, man. Are we speaking into income discrepancy or disparage and poverty
Your baby's
here?
eyes look crazy, they're tugging at your sleeve. Your baby's eyes look crazy, they're tugging at your sleeve. You walk the floor and wonder why with every breath you breathe.
That's your baby's eyes look crazy. They're tugging at your sleeve. I don't know if this is a matter of saying like you can't provide for your baby, and it's your baby isn't doing well as a result, and then commenting on the fact that he's kind of pacing around, wondering what's wrong. That hits so hard.
The rats had got your flower, bad blood had got your mare.
Oh. Like somebody killed
The
your...
rats had got your flower, bad blood had got your mare. If there's anyone that knows, is there anyone that cares?
So it's like your poor and rat got your food and somebody
He
killed your
prayed
mare.
to the Lord above, oh please send you a friend.
Dang.
You prayed to the Lord above, oh please send you a friend. Your empty pockets tell you that you ain't got no friend.
Dang.
Your babies are crying louder now, it's a pounding on your brain.
Just wanting to like take care of your family and it's driving you
Your
crazy.
babies are crying louder now, it's a pounding on your brain. Your wife screams and stabbing you like the dirty driving rain. Your grass is turning black, there's no water in your well.
Wow, golly, this is tough.
Your grass is turning black, there's no water in your well. You spent your last long dollar on 7 shotgun shells. Way out in the wilderness, a cold coyote calls. Way out in the wilderness, a cold coyote calls. Your eyes fix on the shotgun that's hanging on the wall.
I feel like this could go either which way. I feel like we could end up using the shotgun to go hunt and try to get food for your family. Or
your brain is a bleeding and your legs can't seem to stand. Your brain is a bleeding and your legs can't seem to stand.
oh my gosh.
Your eyes fix on a shotgun that you're holding in your hand.
On the shotgun? Spotify lyrics.
There's 7 breezes blowing all around the cabin door.
And he got 7 shotgun shells.
There's 7 breezes blowing all around the cabin door. 7 shots ring out like the ocean's pounding roar.
Oh man.
There's 7 people dead on a South Dakota farm.
Hollis killed his family.
There's 7 people dead on a South Dakota farm. Somewheres in the distance there's 7 new people born.
Dude. When he bought the 7 shotgun shells, there was no bit of me that was doing the math on Hollis's wife and 5 kids being 7. And in my brain, I'm thinking maybe he's going to try to do something to, take care of his family. But with the picture painted, it feels like Hollis, in this context, did something to take care of his family. Instead of making them all suffer because he's too poor and destitute and without anybody to help him and his family, he just eliminated the problems. If that is not a song talking about just the problems with, oh my gosh, rich versus poor, this one is heavy. I just, that is not where I saw it going. And then, is Hollis Brown a real person? Do forgive me for asking. That was so intense. So this one's with God on our side.
Oh, my name, it ain't nothing. My age, it means less. The country I come from is called the Midwest. I was taught and brought up there, the laws to abide, and that the land that I live in has God on its side.
That's definitely what we're
All
raised.
the history books tell it. They tell it so well. The cavalry's charged, the Indians fell. The cavalry's charged, the Indians died. Oh, the country was young with God on its side.
Dude. This is 100% how kids in America are brought up. At least, I mean, even still, how I was. I went to school in the 90s and 2000s, and yeah, like.
The Spanish American War had its day, and the Civil War too was soon laid away, and the names of the heroes I was made to memorize.
Oh man.
With guns in their hands and God on their side.
I feel like this was so countercultural because you're not supposed to question things growing up, you know? Like, we live in a country where I feel like this music inspired people to think about what it was that they were taught, you know, to question whether or not they were potentially indoctrinated without saying so in as many words. You know, questioning the wars that America has fought is almost, you know, glorified sacrilege, depending on who you are or who you're talking to. And again, that I just that concept of having to memorize names of like war heroes is such a real thing. Like, and then that contrast of with God on their side.
The First World War, boys, it came and it went. The reason for fighting I never did get, but I learned to accept it with pride. For you don't count the dead when God's on your side.
Dude.
The Second World War came to an end. We forgave the Germans, and then we were friends. Though they murdered 6 million in the ovens they fried, the Germans now too have God on their side.
I recall in the comments section, people letting me know that Bob Dylan grew up Jewish and kind of angry about what he'd seen, you know, in the aftermath of the horrors of the Holocaust. And it feels like there's... That's a heavy one, dude. And obviously, if you're a German person watching this, because I do have a lot of folks in Germany that watch, it's not like the way I feel. I feel like the concept is more a slam on America than on Germany for what's going on there. But again, this concept, my dog is dreaming. Sorry if you hear little noises. He's making little Basset sleeping noises. I do believe in the forgiving redemption of God, but I also can see where this young man of the time is coming from. And I'm saying young man in this context about Bob Dylan because he's 22 or 23 when he wrote this. If it's 64, this is a year after Freewheelin Bob Dylan. So yeah, I mean, we're talking like a potentially 22, 23, 24-year-old kid, probably 23. That's on. Gosh.
I've learned to hate the Russians all through my whole life. If another war comes, it's them we must fight. To hate them and fear them, to run and to hide, and accept it all bravely with God on my side.
Is this not like timeless though? That line, is this not I mean, it's timeless.
But now we got weapons of chemical dust. If fire them were forced to, then fire them we must. One push of the button, and it shot the world wide. And you never ask questions when God's on your side.
Yes. I feel like people in America are raised to believe it's anti-patriotic to question what's happening in the world around you. And I don't think we should be rooting for any particular person in office to fail because we want our country to succeed, right? Like, but I also feel like we have to toe a very, very, very fine line in the sand of how does one support their country and how does one not embody warmongering on the country's behalf by way of patriotism. I think you can be patriotic by being, active in your government, but not just believing blindly what it says. And I feel like perhaps in this time when it came out, that was a much more taboo thing to talk about. Like perhaps the reason I have the ability to openly discuss this on the internet is because somebody went out of their way to say it publicly first in a musical forum. But again, even as a kid that's grown up in America, it's still true. Like this is, when I say timeless, I mean, I can see my own upbringing within this music as a person who was born significantly later.
Through many dark hours, I've been thinking about this, that Jesus Christ was betrayed by a kiss. But I can't think for you. You'll have to decide whether Judas Iscariot had God on his side.
I don't know.
So now as I'm leaving, I'm weary as hell.
And he slows it down here.
The confusion I'm feeling ain't no tongue can tell. The words fill my head and I fall to the floor. That if God's on our side, he'll stop the next war.
That was such an amazing song. Just being able, like, from the way it questions the world, all of it. Again, the way it questions the country, I feel like it challenges people to be introspective and really consider what it is they think and not just accept what has been spoon-fed to them, you know? I feel like in a lot of ways he calls out indoctrination from you know, the government, the school system, whomever. And it challenges a person to think reasonably, you know? And again, a totally fair perspective for a person to question, given all of the other things, whether Judas had God on his side in that context. For all that was laid out prior, I really can't think of I mean, gosh. Okay. One too many mornings.
Down the street the dogs are barking, and the day is getting dark. As the night comes in a-falling, the dogs lose their bark. And
I love the sound.
Night will shatter from the sounds inside my mind. There's one too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind.
I love this. Why is my Spotify doing that? There we go.
Down the street the dogs are barking.
So his finger picking work is really, really, really nice here. I like just that.
From the sounds inside my mind. There's one too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind.
One too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind. His harmonica accompaniment is
From the crossroads
amazing.
of my doorstep, my eyes start to fade, and I turn my head back to the room where my love and I have laid. And I gaze back to the street, the sidewalk, and the sign, and I'm one too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind.
I would love to hear your interpretation of this song. It almost feels like a retrospective. It almost feels like he's kind of melancholically retrospective here, but I can't decide. I know how I relate to it, but I don't necessarily know it right now if it's what he's singing about.
Is a restless, hungry feeling that don't mean no one no good. When everything I'm a-saying, you can say it just as good. You're right from your side, and I am right from mine. We're both just one too many mornings and 1,000 miles behind.
Yeah, this definitely seems like a reflection on love lost. Mornings waking up alone or distant from the person you're with for whatever reason, whether the relationship isn't working. His harmonica work and guitar picking is so nice, especially the finger picking stuff. So this is North Country Blues, which I believe, yeah, the girl from the North Country. It seems like the North Country has a, you know, some sort of sentimental spot or relevant spot in Dylan's writing.
Come and gather round, friends, and I'll tell you a tale. Of when the red iron pits run aplenty, but the cardboard filled the windows and old men on the benches tell you now that the whole town is empty.
So it's like they shut a factory down?
In the north end of town, my own children have grown. Well, I was raised on the other. In the wee hours of youth, my mother took sick, and I was brought up by my brother. The iron ore poured as the years passed the door. The drag lines and shovels, he was humming, till one day my brother failed to come home, the same as my father before him.
Oh, man. No, these are blues.
With a long winter's wait from the window I watched. My friends, they couldn't have been kinder, and my school aid was cut as I quit in the spring to marry John Thomas, a miner.
You can really see the story that he paints this picture of. You know, like I've commented before that his use of imagery is just exemplary, but you know, the way you kind of see this town in your head and you know, just wading through a long winter.
How the years passed again and the giving was good, with a lunch bucket filled every season. But with 3 babies born, the work was cut down to a half-a-day shift with no reason. Then the shaft was soon shut and my work was cut, and the fire in the air, it felt frozen.
The fire in the air, it felt frozen.
Till a man come to speak, and he said in 1 week that number 11 was closing.
So it really is like this town that just kind of falls, and it's focusing on a life of one particular person and family.
In the east, they're paying too high. They say that your ore ain't worth digging, that it's much cheaper down in the South American towns, where the miners work almost for nothing.
That concept that they're willing to work for almost nothing is such a disgusting thing. I feel like this is a huge shout out, like not shout out, but a huge chop towards, you know, capitalism in competitive spaces, because it affects the people, like business, like, and you know, like chalking up people to numbers on a spreadsheet is effectively kind of how I feel, and how that simple action of chalking people up to numbers on a spreadsheet can tank a business that is a lifeblood for a town, and by proxy for those families as well. And then to say that the ore is worth more because the workers are willing to take less. Oh.
So the mining gates locked and the red iron rotted, and the room smelled heavy from drinking. And the sad silent song made the hour twice as long as I waited for the sun to go sinking.
Goodness.
I lived by the window as he talked to himself. This silence of tongues, it was building, till one morning's wake the bed it was bare, and I was left alone with 3 children.
So just like her dad and her brother,
The summer is gone,
she was left.
The ground's turning cold. These stars one by one they're folded. My children will go as soon as they grow. For there ain't nothing here now to hold them.
Yeah, it's like history repeats itself. Her dad left, her brother left, her fellow left, and just like she left, it starts off by this whole idea, that my own children have grown, but I was raised on the other end of town. Like, they all grow up and leave, and oh man, I really do just think his commentary. I feel like this has significantly been a commentary on income and capitalism and the concept of rich versus poor, like socioeconomics, but also economics.
A bullet from the back of a bush took Medgar Evers' blood.
This song was actually what got me to think, because I heard this in an Elvis documentary, when they were talking about how Elvis starts looking around. By the way, the most recent Elvis documentary on Netflix was fantastic. It showed Elvis the man, not Elvis, the king of rock and roll, and I thought that was amazing. But they were talking about his competitors of the time, and it shows this clip, this black and white clip of Bob Dylan singing this song, and then goes to Elvis and him saying, "I never wrote a song." And so I do have a little bit of a concept of this one.
A bullet from the back
but
of
just
a bush.
you see him
took
playing
Medgar Evers'
the acoustic
blood.
guitar and with a harmonica around his neck.
The trigger to his name. A handle hid out in the dark. A hand set the spark. Two eyes took the aim. Behind a man's brain. But he can't be blamed. He's only a pawn in their game.
Now we're getting back into, the socioeconomics thing for sure. Seeing this with lyrics in front of me instead of just seeing this clip that made me think like, wow, I should check out Bob Dylan. That man sang it. Because again, I can remember just that, a bullet from the back of a bush took Medgar Evers' blood and thinking like, what a hard thing to say with just an acoustic guitar and a harmonica. And so I thought, geez, I should start at the beginning with that guy and go from there. Dude, and all of this stuff, like talking about how he brains a person, but then just saying he can't be blamed. He's only a pawn in their game. It's like commenting that the world around you, like the government specifically, is perpetuating this narrative of something is wrong, and it's making people do things based on these incorrectly preconceived notions. And if that's not timeless, I don't know what is. I can look around the world, of America specifically, and feel like there are so many pawns in such a big game. Like, if this is timeless, what has changed is that the game has gotten much bigger and much more complex.
The South politician preaches to the poor white man. You got more than the blacks, don't complain.
Oh,
You're
man.
better than them, you've been born with white skin, they explain. And the Negro's name is used, it is plain, for the politician's game. As he rises to fame, and the poor white remains on the caboose of the train. But it ain't him to blame, he's only a pawn in their game.
I love how he's bunching in people, like all of the people that are getting crapped on in the world, that he's observing. Again, the South politician character, I can definitely see that man in my head. From my generation of politicians, not the ones then.
The deputy sheriffs, the soldiers, the governors get paid. And the marshals and cops get the same. But the poor white man's used in the hands of them all like a tool. He's taught in his school from the start by the rule that the laws are with him to protect his white skin, to keep up his hate, so he never thinks straight about the shape that he's in. But it ain't him to blame, he's only a pawn in their game.
We teach young white men to put hate on a totally different, unrelated group of people because it's better than focusing on who's really causing the problem. Like, your move. Again, this idea, like we are perpetuating hate by raising up poor white people to blame the wrong it's so good.
From
Irrelevant.
the poverty shacks, he looks from the cracks to the tracks. And the hoofbeats pound in his brain, and he's taught how to walk in a pack, shoot in the back with his fist in a clinch, to hang and to lynch, to hide neath the hood, to kill with no pain, like a dog on a chain. He ain't got no name, but it ain't him to blame, he's only a pawn in their game.
Oh my gosh.
Today Medgar Evers was buried from the bullet he caught. They're lowering him down as a king. But when the shadowy sun sets on the one that fired the gun, you'll see by his grave, on the stone that remains, carved next to his name, his epitaph plain, only a pawn in their game.
So, I looked this up. This happened right among the time he's recording. This was put out January 13th of 64. We're talking 6 months later after he was assassinated. A decorated war hero, a guy that is fighting for the country that he fought for civil rights. And he was shot. Absolutely. Does it say he was in Normandy? Like, this man was in Normandy and somebody shot him because he said we should treat everybody equally. That's... oh my goodness. I think that this is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. I feel like it's folk music that is designed to make one feel introspective about what it is in the world around them. And I would like to think that this really, really kicked off a counterculture that I hope continues to grow. And again, I think people my age and younger need to be able to hear things like this and be able to connect their own dots in the world around them. I feel like I really feel like the world needs it. Like America needs it in particular. Looking around, no matter which side of the aisle you voted, I don't think it takes a dummy. A dummy could realize that we're in a place in the world where this needs to be addressed. Like, both sides suck. Both sides really, really suck, and both sides perpetuate the game that creates pawns. And more people need to hear this. Boots of Spanish leather.
Oh, I'm sailing away, my own true love.
Ooh.
I'm sailing away in the morning. Here's something I can send you from across the sea, from the place that I'll be landing. No, there's nothing you can send me, my own true love. There's nothing.
This sounds like the girl from North Country.
No, there's nothing you can send me, my own true love.
Like, I feel like he borrowed the lick.
There's nothing I'm wishing to be owning, just to carry yourself back to me unspoiled.
Yeah, this is definitely the girl from North Country.
From across
She once was a true love of
that
mine.
lonesome ocean. Ah, but I just thought you might want something fine, made of silver or of golden, either from the mountains of Madrid or from the coast of Barcelona.
I think it's interesting that this is like a guy that's going off to war or something, maybe, and then his love is just like, no, just come back to me. I don't need anything. And he's like, I thought you might want something.
But if I had the stars of the darkest night and the diamonds from the deepest ocean, I'd forsake them all for your sweet kiss. For that's all I'm wishing to be owning.
That's part. I got a little choked up.
But I might be gone a long old time, and it's only that I'm asking. Here's something I can send you to remember me by, to make your time more easy passing. Oh, how can you ask me again? It only brings me sorrow, this same thing I would want today, I will want again tomorrow.
I think the thing that tears me up about this is that in my life, the thing I want more than anything is like a love, right? Like, I'm not out looking for it. I'm kind of a lonely to myself person. But the idea of just having somebody in your life that it doesn't matter what they give you, you just want their time, to be with them, a kiss. Like, I guess maybe to me, the desire of my life is to have that person that just wants my time or my kiss or you know, that nothing I could bring back for them would mean as much as me coming back to them. And again, just this idea, he wants so much to give his love something, and she just wants so much for him to come back.
Oh, I got a letter on a lonesome day. It was from her ship, a sailing, saying I don't know when I'll be coming back again. It depends on how I'm feeling. If you, my love, must think that way, I'm sure your mind is a Roman. I'm sure your thoughts are not with me, but with the country to where you're going.
Was Bob walked out on by somebody? I didn't think that this... I feel like somebody was talking to Bob instead of maybe Bob talking to somebody. I feel like at that part, the perspective kind of switched on my...
So take heed of the western winds. Take heed of the stormy weather. And yes, there's something you can send back to me. Spanish boots are Spanish leather.
I don't know if this is a juxtaposed idea or if these are symbolic in some way, the Spanish boots of Spanish leather, but this had this idea, like, there's a deep love to this, there's a deep longing to this, but then there's also like a deep sadness to this. And I don't know. I don't know why it is that love songs, both happy or sad, affect me in the way that they do, but... actually just definitely give me your impression of what you think the Spanish leather bit means, though.
Oh, the time will come up when the winds will stop and the breeze will cease to be breathing, like the stillness in the wind before the hurricane begins, the hour that the ship comes in. And the sea will split and the ships will hit, and the sands on the shoreline will be shaking, and the tide will sound and the waves will pound, and the morning will be a breaking.
When the ship comes in,
the fishes will laugh as they swim out of the path, and the seagulls will be smiling, and the rocks on the sand will proudly stand the hour that the ship comes in. And the words that are used for to get the ship confused will not be understood as the spoken, for the chains of the sea will have busted in the night and be buried at the bottom of the ocean.
I can't... Is this... Are we talking like a warship? What kind? Or are we talking about a ship carrying a loved one? What are we talking about?
Will lift as the mainsail shifts and the boat drifts onto the shoreline, and the sun will respect every face on the deck the hour that the ship comes in, and the sands will roll out a carpet of gold for your weary toes to be a-touching. And the ship's wise men will remind you once again that the whole wide world is watching.
I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just the context I've gotten throughout the album, but I feel like we're almost singing about like a ship dropping soldiers off for war on a shore. Love the harmonica there. He's wailing.
Oh, the foes will rise with a sleep still in their eyes, and they'll jerk from their beds and think they're dreaming, but they'll pinch themselves and squeal, and they'll know that it's for real the hour that the ship comes in. Then they'll raise their hands, saying we'll meet all your demands, but we'll shout from the bow, your days are numbered.
Wow.
And like Pharaoh's tribe, they'll be drowned in the tide, and like Goliath, they'll be conquered.
This actually, I think, had my favorite bit of harmonica work from Bob Dylan here. But I definitely feel like we're singing about like Bay of Pigs or the beach of Normandy, something like that.
Williams and Zinger killed poor Hattie Carroll with a cane that he twirled around his diamond ring finger at a Baltimore hotel society gathering, and the cops was called in and his weapon took from him as they rode him in custody down to the station and booked Williams and Zinger for first-degree murder.
Whoa.
But you who philosophize disgrace and criticize all fears, take the rag away from your face. Now ain't the time for your tears. Williams and Zinger, who had 24 years, owns a tobacco farm of 600 acres.
There are very few 24-year-olds that own 600 acres, let alone an acre. But yeah, it seems so. William Zanzinger killed poor Hattie Carroll with a cane that he twirled around his diamond ring finger at a Baltimore hotel society gathering. And the cops were called in and his weapon took from him as they rode him in custody down to the station and booked him for first-degree murder. But you who philosophize, disgrace, and criticize all fears, take the rag away from your face. Now ain't the time for your tears. William Zanzinger, who at 24 years,
with rich, wealthy parents who provide and protect him. In high office relations in the politics of Maryland, reacted to his deed with a shrug of his shoulders and swear words and sneering, and his tongue it was a snarling. And in a matter of minutes on bail was out walking. But you who philosophize disgrace and criticize fears, take the rag away from your face. Now ain't the time for your tears. Hattie Carroll was a maid in the kitchen. She was 51 years old and gave birth to 10 children, who carried the dishes and took out the garbage, and never sat once at the head of the table, and didn't even talk to the people at the table, who just cleaned up all the food from the table and emptied the ashtrays on a whole other level. Got killed by a blow, lay slain by a cane that sailed through the air and came down through the room. Doomed and determined to destroy all the gentle, and she never done nothing to Williams and Zinger.
Wow.
And you who philosophize disgrace and criticize all fears, take the rag away from your face. Now ain't the time for your tears.
Oh my gosh. This is literally saying like, hey, this wealthy dingleberry who's got everything he wants because he's got wealthy parents, killed a hard-working, kind person who never had anything of her own and just worked really hard and everybody was like, meh, you know, everybody just went with it. Like, parents are stepping in, like people know people. It's not an issue. It's actually, and then to talk about who she was, and then to kind of turn it, like it doesn't matter. She never, if she didn't do anything to William Zanzinger. Oh. I love that harmonica solo.
In the courtroom of honor, the judge pounded his gavel.
The imagery
that
here.
All's equal, and that the courts are on the level, and that the strings in the books ain't pulled and persuaded, and that even the nobles get properly handled.
See, I feel like he's commenting on the symbolic gesture of the pounding of a gavel, and how it's supposed to mean one thing, like everybody's equal, and rich or poor, we're all on the same playing field. But I feel like we're walking into this knowing it's not going to be the case.
Cops have chased after and caught him, and that the ladder of law has no top and no bottom. Stared at the person who killed for no reason, who just happened to be feeling that way without warning. And he spoke through his cloak most deep and distinguished, and handed out strongly for penalty and repentance Williams and Zinger with a 6-month sentence. But you who philosophize disgrace and criticize all fears, bury the rain deep in your face, for now's the time for your tears.
And the time to cry, the time for tears is when we basically let him off with a 6-month sentence, you know? Like, this album has been so maddeningly infuriating because of how, I mean, all of this, as I'm just reflecting through what's been happening, we've touched on socioeconomics, we've touched on you know, rich and poor disparage, we've touched on, you know, the civil rights era, the wrongdoings, like where money, race, and status all play in, and how those things don't really matter in the eyes of the law. The only thing that does really matter is like wealth and white. In this context, it's just infuriating because, again, I can think of examples in my generation where we've seen wealthy people get off for just, you know, oh, it's not that big a deal, whatever. I'm hoping that all of this stuff happening with like Diddy really sinks a lot of ships, because I neither here nor there. As I'm hearing, this album is a very tough listen because it draws very uncomfortable attention to very, very, very big issues. And it does so in a way to inspire one to think about the evils of the world around them, about, is this actually fair? And the more and more I go through this, the more and more it feels like he's commenting like these are the times that need to be a changin'. I'm very sad that this is the last song. I feel like I've just, as a cohesive unit, this album has definitely stood out to me a bit more than the Freewheelin Bob Dylan. I loved that album, but I just feel like this has had a bigger impact on me, like, than a few songs that I would just listen to. I can't speak enough into the fact that a kid wrote this. Like I say a kid, like a 23-year-old man wrote this, not to, golly day.
Oh, all the money that in my whole life I did spend, be it mine right or wrongfully, I let it slip gladly to my friends to tie up the time most forcefully. But the bottles are done.
Wow.
We've killed each one, and the table's full and overflowed. And the corner sign says it's closing time. So I'll bid farewell and bid down the road.
There's such a conviction and feeling to this whole work, and this...
Oh, every girl that ever I've touched, I did not do it harmfully. And every girl that ever I've hurt, I did not do it knowingly. But to remain as friends, you need the time to make amends and stay behind.
Oh, man.
And since my feet are now fast and point away from the past, I'll bid farewell and bid down the line.
There's an element of this that's just screaming at Walter, the younger man. And still am in a lot of ways, a very restless person, and I see myself here, like, popping bottles with friends, and then when that's over, you're kind of left with this, like, what do I do now? And you just kind of go forward looking for something else. In a similar kind of context with relationships, like after my divorce, a similar kind of thing happened, and you're trying to figure you out and this aftermath of grief, and you do it wrong a lot before you figure out that, like, maybe I'm not a person that can handle that. And so you kind of just move on and you look for something else. And I very much see and relate to the restless nature of this. But I also can see how after this whole thing, there would be an element of restlessness to your life. Like you're in the midst of moving forward as an artist. You're looking around at a world you hate because of what it's doing, or problems in the world you hate. I don't know. I could see how the restless theme comes in after singing so many things, and especially considering where he is in this point.
Oh, every foe that ever I faced, the cause was there before we came, and every cause that ever I fought it full without regret or shame.
This has been one of the strangest songs musically.
But the dark does die as the curtain is drawn, and somebody's eyes must meet the dawn.
Oh.
And if I see the day, I'd only have to stay. So I'll bid farewell in the night and be gone.
There's also very much like a on the road kind of thing from Jack Kerouac here. Like Jack Kerouac is my favorite author by far. I've read a ton of his works. I think Big Sur is probably my favorite, just because the contrast from who he was and on the road to who he becomes in Big Sur is just shattering. But I also think Jack Kerouac lived his life restlessly, you know? And of course, I think in 63 he was still alive. I don't think Jack passed away until 68, but, you know, his work in like the Dharma Bums and the Subterraneans, I very much found myself riveted with his works. And there's just an element of beatnik transience here kind of being sung about. I don't know. I really enjoy it. And in my own way relate to it, like the wanderlust that comes with life. Oh,
every thought that strung a knot in my mind, I might go insane if it couldn't be sprung. But it's not to stand naked under unknowing eyes. It's for myself and my friends, my stories are sung. But the time ain't tall if on time you depend, and no word is possessed by no special friend. And though the line is cut, it ain't quite the end. I just bid farewell till we meet again.
it's interesting that he's singing about what's left behind in his wake, or how leaving wow.
Oh, a false clock tries to tick out my time, to disgrace, distract, and bother me. And the dirt of gossip blows into my face, and the dust of rumors covers me. But if the arrow is straight and the point is slick, it can pierce through dust no matter how thick. So I'll make my stand and remain as I am, and bid farewell and not give a damn.
So I feel like maybe this part is referring to what the media says about him. I think this album is a better album than Freewheelin Bob Dylan. This album stood out to me so much for so many different reasons. Really hit me between the eyes with the lyricism. And again, I think there's if I'm just being honest, I may not have connected the Jack Kerouac theme there had I not read you guys commenting about his love for Jack Kerouac and the beatnik generation, of artists like Allen Ginsberg, and I think somebody mentioned William S. Burroughs, but I very much find myself relating to this, and even when I just think about the way I grew up, kind of feeling like I was, maybe an outcast for not just being able to. I was very much a questioning person, and I feel like this stands out to me as. Every song on here I really liked. And again, further than that, this whole thing was a harmonica and a guitar and a voice. There's no need for a metronome. The raw, dirty, folky Americana feel to this whole thing it feels like this is sang with conviction, because it sounds like it could just be a guy in your room, like at your house. There is an element of just such personal touch to this. And again, that it doesn't have to be overproduced. Like, and when you compare this to what Elvis was doing at the time, they're just not even comparable. And there's feelings to this. There is, I'll say it, I keep saying it, but there's conviction to this. There is a tangible feeling that this man believes what it is he's singing about. And he kind of lays his own self bare in some of his songs, you know? It takes a very special writer to do that, and to share vulnerability is difficult and special in its own way, because it allows people to relate to you, and it allows you to relate with them. The human experience is a difficult one to navigate, and when you're looking around at a world full of people navigating the human experience, it becomes very depressing in a lot of ways. And there's beauty that you can find along the way, with family, with friends, with love, with the beauties that you can see in the world from scenery and finding stuff within yourself. But then there's so much evil in the world. I think Dylan does a really great job focusing on both sides of the spectrum, but does not make his music easy for people to listen to. Because it doesn't make people think in the same way. I think that there's an element of him writing things that are shocking, but I don't think it's for shock value. I think it's because it's what happened and we need to be thinking about it. And even if the names, even if I don't have specifically off the top of my head a Hollis Brown and comparison for you right now, or a Hattie comparison for you right now, I know that they exist in my timeline of life, because they're everywhere. You can look at the news. On the spot, I can't think of comparisons, but this is absolutely, we've seen something lived out in the world. And for an album to come out 60 years ago, almost 61 years ago in January, for it to still be singing about things that are absolutely 100% politically relevant today is amazing. And it really speaks into the artist that Bob Dylan is. I'm going to continue on through his stuff chronologically. I don't think I'm going to be doing this stuff live on stream. I think that it's something I want to kind of chew on and handle and marinate on myself without commentary from a chat. I think I would prefer the YouTube comments section in this one to be, where the conversation happens, as opposed to just a chat on screen. And it's a lot easier for me to, I think, sometimes focus in on the lyricism when I don't have a Twitch chat going along. Guys, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the positivity that you show both to me and to one another. Continue to be the best. And until I see you next, be introspective and consider the birds. And do yourselves a favor. Listen to this album again without my pausing and think about it. This is timeless and needs to be shared with people. I love you. Goodbye.